Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello and welcome. It is time for round 3 of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup, coming to you live from sunny Florida and the iconic Sebring, a track based on the runways and connecting roads of a former US Air base. This track has become a mecca for sports car fans the world over, having held its famous 12-hour race since 1952, and of course now supplemented by the 1,000-kilometre race for the World Endurance Championship the day before. And Sebring, it's a veritable feast for the endurance racing enthusiasts. But today we're going to see the GT3 cars taking to the track. It's going to be an absolute classic, I'm sure. I'm Tim Cox. We've got Lewis Wood in the virtual production trailer right now, as always. I'm joined by Seb Bosher-Williams. Seb, Sebring can be a little bit tricky and quite possibly the most bumpiest track in world motorsport.
Certainly is. I mean, every time you talk to a driver about Sebring, the only thing they mention are the bumps. It's such an iconic circuit, and iconic those bumps as well. Oh, it's going to be such a good race today. Red Bull Ring, a very different track to what we've got. It's all going to be about slipstream today. Who set their car up? Who's taken as much downforce as they dare off the car? Who's feeling a little bit racy? Again, you know, RacingLab, it was a great race in Red Bull Ring 1 week ago, and I'm sure it's going to be an even better race here today. Tim, what I have noticed is, you know, talking about the bumps and how difficult the track is going to be to drive, but the track temperature, 103 degrees Fahrenheit. By my very quick math, that's about 40 degrees Celsius. So really high track temperatures out there. It's going to be really difficult for our drivers in qualifying.
Not far off there, Seb. 48 degrees Celsius to be precise, but we'll let you off that one for now, definitely. But as you mentioned, yeah, that's going to be really, really tricky for the drivers out there. So we've got qualifying just about to get underway. 10 minutes in which drivers have 4 laps to set their fastest time before we head out into an hour-long race where they have to take a pit stop. Now, Seb, last week at the Red Bull Ring, what a crazy set of scenarios. So the drivers were able to make the whole race on one tank. However, it all came down to the pit stop in the battle for second between Helvig and Maivang. And the difference was Helvig unticking the windscreen tear off and Maivang leaving it on, which meant that he was able to claim second place and get the jump of Maivang during the pit stop window. It was absolutely fascinating to watch, and I think at first, certainly for myself and possibly for you as well, to have a race separated in that sort of fashion.
I mean, it was insane. You know, the difference between unticking or ticking a box in your pit stop configuration, the difference between second and third place. Yeah, my first and I think only experience we're ever going to see of that. Are they going to be able to do the same around Sebring today? It's quite easy to fuel save around Sebring. You know, turn one, if you get it right, you don't even have to touch the brakes. You can just lift off the throttle, ease the front end into the corner. Having a look at Stefan Helvik at the moment. He's starting his first qualifying lap. Through turn one we go. I think we are going to see the same sort of shenanigans, and you know, maybe drivers have learned after maybe rewatching the broadcast, listening to the interviews at the end, that they really need to be on their pit stop and configure it so you know you spend the least amount of time possible stationary. It's really interesting stuff here. And you know, we've got 9 drivers out on track at the moment, so an increase over 1 week ago. So you know, we're going to see more drama, more incidents. I really am looking forward to this one, Tim.
Let's head down in towards that tricky hairpin turn there. So easy to pick up an off track, and it's going to be a definite overtaking point, I'm sure. As Seb mentioned, turn one being another potential place for drama. We've seen it many series here on Apex Racing TV. And of course, Sunset Bend, the iconic, quite possibly the bumpiest part of the circuit, is where it's all going to be interesting. Plenty of overtakes down there. Of course, you've got the long back straight, the Ullman straight, which ironically comes just before the start-finish line. The polar opposite of a place like Interlagos, where the back straight is just after turn one. So keep an eye out for that one later in the race. And it's going to all about getting an absolute epic exit out of Le Mans corner and carrying all that speed through. And well, Steinbratten's going to be the first one. No, apology. Loxton's going to be the first one across the line to set the initial pace. Let's see what he manages to get in. This was on board with Helvik having down the Ullman straight. So there we go. 2:02.27. That is the time for the drivers to beat. Loxton in the Audi R8. And Steinbratten goes quicker by a considerable margin there. 1:58.5 with Ryan heading in the first of our 2 Ferrari runners into second. And well, Helvik, there you go. Well, we'd expect to see him in the Mercedes up onto the provisional front row right now with Steinbratten. Steinbratten has picked up 2 pole positions from the first 2 rounds. As Maivang, one of the Mercedes runners, pops it into 3rd place. Much closer margins though, Seb, than what we saw last time out at Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, really close. I mean, 3/10 separating Steinbratten and Helvik. I think our other main protagonist, Mervang, didn't get the lap together that he would have necessarily have wanted. He's already returned back to the pits. Stiverton really maximising the exit speed of Sunset, going wide, compromising the entry speed, trying to get the best run out into turn one to gain, you know, an extra half a tenth, even a tenth of a second can really make a difference around this circuit. What I thought was interesting, Tim, is Steinbratten, as soon as he finished his lap, he immediately got on the brakes, he stopped, and he went out again. So he's got a fresh car, which means fresh tyres. So Steinbratten really liking the 1-lap performance of his car. Doesn't feel like he needs another lap to get the tyres up to temperature. I mean, we're at such a hot track at the moment that I'd be surprised if any driver was struggling with tyre warm-up. But Steinbratten happy to only sort of do 2 laps. He's sacrificing 2 of his 4 allotted laps by just doing out laps. So Steinbratten with an interesting strategy for qualifying. And maybe, is that going to give him the advantage, Tim?
Well, left to find out in qualifying. We've got about 3.5 minutes left. I don't know who's going to claim pole position. Will it be Steinbratten to make it 3 in a row? We're going to see someone else take the fight to him. Well, Helvik and Maivang are the closest to. It's going to take something big, especially from Maivang, to dislodge Steinbratten from starting first on the grid. There is Maivang, the 889 machine. One of 4 Mercedes runners, as Scarrett, one of them just about to mention, hadn't put a time in yet, goes into 4th place. OGL Coatings driver, lap from him. We're looking to improve on that one, sitting between the 2 clear definitive packs, which you saw last time out, didn't we, Seb? At Red Bull Ring, where we had Steinbart and Halvik and Maiwang, vying for the lead, and then obviously the following pack behind, which were incredibly close. So 2 sets of battles, and based on initial qualifying time, Seb, it seems like we're going to have that again, but maybe Scarrett being the slightly odd one out, who's sitting in the middle of the pair of them.
Yeah, I think Scarrett, the only driver ever to want some competition, and maybe the other drivers behind him to go a little bit quicker. Steinbart getting all a quiver through turns 2 and 3. I think Scarrett is in no man's land, I think we can call it. He's not finding the pace of Steinbart and Helvik and Maiwang, as you said. Siverton just, a second or so behind him. So Scarrett, unless anything changes, is looking like he's going to have a very lonely old race out there. Of course, we say it every week, when you get into qualifying, different drivers favour different sessions. Some are naturally quicker in qualifying and struggle with the race pace, or completely the opposite way round. So, I think it's too early to say that Scarrett's going to have, a boring race in 4th place. And, he might be there to pick up any of the pieces if the top 3 decide to have a little bit of a squabble. But Steinbarton's lap at the moment, Tim, not really developing in the way that he would have wanted. Into Tower Corner, that car looking very oversteery, not getting the grip that he would have wanted from his Mercedes car. And I think Steinbarton, his plan to do 2 single flying laps is not working out for our provisional pole sitter at the moment.
Looks like that way at the moment, as aboard with Steinbarton as he heads out onto the Ormond Straight at Le Mans. Building up pace now, the run down to Sunset's Bend. Bit of a tricky corner here due to the bumps, and there's a couple of lines available to you. He runs it in late, indeed, looking for that late apex, waiting patiently to get on the power, feathering the throttle. The opposite of steering, just losing the rear end a bit on exit. We're going to see him improve time-wise. No, he's not. In fact, actually, he abandoned that lap. He didn't think it was good enough. He's not going to get a chance to go out and complete that line time again. So, Halvik goes faster, but still remains second. Improves by 2 tenths. Now a 10th off pole. He's not going to be able to get another lap in, I don't think. I don't think he'll have the fuel on board, certainly. Sivertson going across the line here. And we're seeing an improvement from him. Yes, time-wise, remains in 5th place. There's Maiwang. Needs a big, big lap if he wants to get himself up onto the 3rd row of the grid. The RPC esports driver. As he rounds the final corner. Sunset Bend. What's the lap time is he going to be setting? Previous best was 1:59.27. Well, no improvement. He did for sure. He did get it in there, Seb. I think he just missed out by seconds and falling short. So that means there's no improvement from him. So let's take you through your grid here for round 3 of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup from Sebring International Raceway. Steinbarton starting on pole for the 3rd time in a row this season. Great results from the Narado esports driver. Stefan Halbig of RSR by G Performance. He'll be joining on the front row with Odin Maiwang. In the end, happened to sell for the 2nd row of the grid. 3rd place, the RPC esports driver, the Mercedes. Looking out the top 4 with Alexander Scarrett joining Maiwang on the 2nd row of the grid for the IGL Coatings driver. Sivertson in the Audi, one of the 2 Audis that we have here today at Sebring. He starts from 5th place as Team Slow-Mo driver with his teammate Espresso Ryan. He's driving in the Ferrari though. They make up your 3rd row of the grid. Benedictson, the Icelandic driver in a lone BMW here. He starts in 7th place with Loxon in the other Audi runner of Team Happy Life Factory, completing your 4th row of the grid, starting in 8th position for Loxon. Stensrud of Team Slow-Mo, one of the 3 Team Slow-Mo drivers making up the field here today. And our 2nd Ferrari is going to round out your 9-car grid here. And it's going to be an intriguing one of an hour's race, as we said previously, with a pit stop in the middle. As it's going to, we'll wait for the drivers to take to the grid before we head away. What's going to be a fast, furious, and tricky opening lap. It's just drivers forming up behind the Porsche 911 safety car. Got a full, complete lap here of the pace lap. Drivers get plenty of heat into their temperatures, as Seb mentioned. High track temperatures here today at Sebring. Some 48 degrees Celsius, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Actually, scrap, I've just had a quick check on the temperatures once again. It's crept up to 50 degrees Celsius. That's around about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So, Seb, it's only getting hotter out there, but we are starting at 20 past 1 local time here in Florida. So, we should be coming down in temperatures as the race goes on, but I don't think it'll drop too much off, will it?
It certainly won't. Going to be really tricky for all of the drivers. You know, you won't be taking tyres in this race, so it's all going to be about tyre management, and really those opening few laps are so crucial when it comes to managing your tyres. You've got to be careful not overload the tyres too much. It's going to be really tricky out there. But once again, you know, we have Steinbraten, Helvik and Mervang, the top 3, and I think this race is really going to come down to who can manage their car better, who can manage the fuel, who can manage the tyres. You know, Steinbraten is quicker over 1 lap, but what about a race pace? I mean, this race is set up so perfectly. And, you know, also, the drivers are not used to doing a full formation lap. All of this tension is building up, you know, within the cockpit. You're starting to think about what you're going to be doing on the opening lap, and you start to overthink things, and it can really affect you. And, you know, I noticed that whenever a league or an official race comes to Sebring or any other track that has a full formation lap, it really does sort of influence the first lap antics that you experience. So don't count out this little sort of minor thing really making a difference to today's race. But you can hear, Tim, everybody on the clutch, they are really trying to fuel save on this formation lap. I think we're in for a really strategic race tonight.
It definitely seems that way. And with these high track temperatures, Seb, and you mentioned the full lap for the formation lap, yourself being an experienced and high-rated GT driver, how do you handle it? Do you weave a bit to generate some heat in the tyres, or you try and keep the car as smooth and as still and steady as possible? And I assume you'd be doing the same as these guys in terms of a bit of fuel saving as well, if it was an hour-long race that you were in?
Yeah, so fuel saving, definitely you'll be holding in the clutch, trying to, you know, short shift as much as you can. Around the tyres, there's not much you can really do to generate tyre temperature. You know, the best thing you can do is foot on the brake and a little bit of accelerator and sort of ride the brakes, gain that brake temperature, and that sort of soaks into the tyre itself. The weaving doesn't really do much in iRacing or for any sort of GT series, so it's all about building the brake temperature, but it's just about anticipating and expecting that when you go into turn 1, the tyres will not be up to temperature as much as you hope them to be. So you're really already thinking about turn 1 and like going, okay, I need to sort of maybe take it like 20% slower or some metric like that. These formation laps are so tricky. And I think we're about to get ready to go racing, Tim.
They certainly are. Cars heading round Sunset Bend. It's allowing the safety car just to pull away a little bit, build up some gap, and that's peeled in. Let's get ready to go racing for round 3 of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup, and we are away here at Sebring, and Steinbraten getting the jump of everyone, leaving the 3 Mercedes behind him in his wake. But everyone getting away clean in these early stages. Benedictson having to defend there for Stenstrud. Actually, no, apologies. It's the other, that's Espresso Ryan he's on the attack against. So everyone filing through nice and easily in these early stages and playing it as a relatively calm affair. But Ben Dixon, he's managed to get past Ryan, and Stensrud has managed to climb a place past Loxton as well. Best opening laps for certainly the Audi driver Loxton and the Ferrari of Ryan as we head down through the hairpin. Bit of a tricky corner in these opening laps with tyres and brakes being not fully up to temperature to miss your braking marker. So you'll follow through neatly through the Fighting Fortress, Bishop's Bends. Let's hope a little bit further ahead of myself. There's Cunningham Corner first of all. There's Collier Curve. And already Steinbraten, Helvig and Murray starting to open up a bit of advantage over Scarrett. There he is, and the IGR Coatings Mercedes. But he is bringing along Sivertson, Benedictson and the gang behind them for the ride. these early stages. We see Halvik all over the rear bumper of Steinbart in these opening stages. Certainly not a bit different to what we saw last time out. That Red Bull ring as they head out of Le Mans, and Halvik right in the slipstream. Seb, do you sit behind and fuel save even more so in these early stages, or do you go for it? Well, I think we've just answered our question there from Halvik. We had the big dip of the clutch, electing to sit behind Steinbraten and let him punch a hole in the air for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, we definitely heard some fuel saving, but that wouldn't be what my tactic would be. If I was Halvik at the moment, I'd be wanting to get past Steinbraten as quickly as possible. You know, Steinbraten's won the last 2 races that we've had. I mean, I want to be ahead of him and trying to make a gap and, you know, seize the opportunity while I had it. So I think Halvik's playing a long game, a risky game here, but I mean, you know, if he can fuel save, he has the advantage over Steinbraten. Steinbraten, as you said, punching a hole in the air, using all of that fuel for no real benefit to him. The benefits of Halvik and Meierwang, though. Scarrett already 3 seconds off our top 3, so he's sort of irrelevant in this battle at the moment, but you know, Steinbraten's in such a tricky position at the moment. He's got to keep pace up, he's got to try and extend his gap, but also fuel save as well. You know, Halvik, he needs to, at the very least, be behind Steinbraten, apply some pressure, always be in the mirrors, and not allow Steinbraten to ease off and start fuel saving. But again, if I was Halvik, I think I'd want to be past him at the moment.
Halvik needs to be careful because looming large in his mirrors is Meierwang. Top 3 covered by well under a second, closer to 3/4 of a second in fact, and already Scarrett's starting to lose a bit of pace against our top 3. Let's not forget Scarrett is no slouch. We've seen him here plenty of times on Apex Racing TV. The strength of our top 3. But right now Scarrett being the best of the rest, but not far behind him is Benediktsson. Sivertsen starting to drop off a bit from Scarrett and Benediktsson with he's locked in a fight with Ryan and Stensrud and Loxon. So 3 groups emerging already. And everyone just remaining steady. This earlier changes. Benediktsson making a bit of progress though. Highest climber so far. He's up 2 places. Started 7th into 5th. Really taking the fight to the cars in front of him. Let's not forget. Let's see from the graphic in the bottom right corner right now. You see that Scarrett he's got 3.0k. Now, what does that mean? That's his iRating, his skill-based level within iRacing. Benediktsson is only 1.7k, and it takes quite a bit to climb between those 2 sets of numbers. And right now, Benediktsson is putting in a real solid fight to take it to someone of the ability of Scarrett.
He really is, and you know, iRating is a really good measure of different people's abilities, but you know, some drivers are just naturally quicker in certain cars. You know, if you think of one, think about a real life example. Lando Norris was not very quick in F3s and F2s. I mean, still rapid, but as soon as he got to F1, he just prefers a quicker car. And some drivers really sort of gravitate towards GT3s or tin top cars. So yeah, Benediktsson, I mean, currently and superbly outperforming his ratings at the moment. I mean, you know, the difference between Meierwang and Scarrett is only 900 iRating, and Scarrett really not finding anywhere near the pace of Meierwang, at least at this current stage of the race. Espresso Ryan Jr., though, another one of the 1.7k club. Actually, there's 3 of them in the race at the moment. He's trying to get past Steverton. Oh, he's wide at Tower. That's going to cost him a lot of time. Espresso Ryan really going to be on the back foot now as we head towards Le Mans and our final sector of Sebring. And Tim, this is my favourite part. I think of any track ever. I love this section. It's just so fast, it's so flowing, and it's so technical. The amount of skill that you need, especially in the pedal box to control the car, is quite something, and it always makes me smile when I do it right.
For myself, Seb, that's why more to hear me more in the commentary than you see me out racing on the track. I find that it's so easy once you come offline through that section, as you mentioned. It's really technical, and if you get the first part wrong or just your entry slightly wrong, then it really just amplifies through the rest of that sector, and I find myself losing so much time through there.
it's a real knife edge around there. You're right. As soon as you get even like a meter offline, you just bleed time all through the section. That's why it feels so good when you get it right. You know, I remember driving, you know, sort of the Mercedes around here and never really got along with it. The Mercedes, I mean, they're very quick around here. The top 4 are all Mercedes, but they're front engine car, and I know there's something to be said for a middle rear engine car around Sebring. It's so fun to drive. I would totally recommend if you have, you know, any GT3, load up a Sebring test session and have a go, because it's, you know, like everybody's got a track and car combo that they just go to and they drive for a bit. GT3s around Sebring is certainly mine. I tell you what, it's looking like it might be Helvik's as well. I mean, he is still... Oh, Steinbraten's made a mistake there, Tim. He's going to be on the back foot as we head towards Tower Corner. Not necessarily a good overtaking opportunity for Helvik, but is Helvik going to seize upon Steinbraten's mistake?
A slight mistake. It did look like it was, as you mentioned there, Seb, Helvik's time to shine and to capitalise, but electing just to back out of it a little bit. He has gained on Steinbraten. This is by about a tenth, as it extends out once again. As we head through Gabardine and into Le Mans and wind up out of the corner, down the Ullman Straight. That's the rear of the pits. You see all the trucks forming up on the right-hand side. I've brought all the cars here today, or at least in real life that's what happens. Maybe not quite so much of the way in the virtual world. You really see the bumps in the road through Sunset Bend, where the cars are just bouncing around. You see the front splitter of the car, just almost skimming the road surface at times. It's actually a unique track. I say unique in terms of its bump it is. Of course, many a circuit formed off of former Air Force or RAF bases. See, the UK is absolutely littered with them. In iRacing alone, the iconic Silverstone, Snetterton, all built around former RAF bases. Let's go along with a scuttleload that aren't within iRacing. Thruxton, that's been muted for a little while about heading to iRacing, and a bit of a shame, doesn't it? That's a real fast, epic circuit, bit tight, short laps, not quite as short as Knock Hill of the UK circuits. As well, that was not based on their former RAF base, as we just see Ben Dixon, the man on the move, up 2 places and in full attack mode up the inside of Scarrett, who fights back right around the outside there, just about able to hold on for dear life right now, the number 4 Mercedes. You can see Bernard Dixon has really got the bit between his teeth right now, hasn't he, Seb? Just, well, because the commentator there, watching him run wide out onto the dirt on the exit out of Tower. We head through Bishop Bend. I tell you what, he's really, really making hay while the sun is shining here in Sebring.
He really seized upon the opportunity, and I thought that he got the move done over Scarrett into turn 10. Scarrett, very brave to hang it all the way around the outside, but I mean, there's no denying Benedictson's pace at the moment. He certainly looks like he's got the pace for P4, and you know, he was almost 0.6 of a second quicker than Alexander Scarrett on that last lap. Benedictson just, I wonder if it's, you know, if it's the BMW just coming into its own, the differences between the two cars. I'm not sure. Helvik setting a personal best for him last time around. There's a Ferrari going very wide on the outside of turn 1.
Up the inside, having a good old look, a good old lunge is Benedictson, the Icelandic driver. Can he get the move done? Garrett, once again, clinging on for dear life. He's going to have his work cut out if he wants to hold on to this, but no. Alexa Tech right in behind Benedictson. And that is the BMW up into 4th place, breaking up that lockout for Mercedes in the top 4. And Scarrett, in the end, just couldn't seem to quite position his car in the right place and didn't have an answer for Benedictson, who, on the contrary, had all the answers for Scarrett and so more, and made it look like child's play in some ways.
Yeah, Benedictson, I mean, he's absolutely rapid at this phase of the race. I mean, you know, I said in qualifying when it looked like Scarrett was going to be in no man's land, some drivers just tend to prefer different sessions, and Benedictson certainly looks like he's just a much better racer. That's wide, though. Again, curse of the commentator into turn 10, where he made that move 1 lap ago on Scarrett in the grass, almost losing the position, almost losing the car, in fact. But Benedictson somewhat keeping it together. But, you know, he's starting to crack actually under pressure here, Tim. Wide again through Tower Corner. You know, Benedictson, he's got the pace, but you also need the consistency. And this lap has been fairly scruffy from the BMW driver.
Despite being scruffy though, Seb, he's been able to hold on to that 4th place, and if anything, he's starting to edge away slowly from Scarrett. You see, really using all the curbing and a bit more there. That was the Audi Civitan and Espresso Ryan in the Ferrari, just in the background there, as they came out of Le Mans corner. The gap between them is shrinking, so much so. Ryan just having a bit of a look. Oh, that's contact there. A pair of them backing at it, and amazingly, they've got away with it, Seb. I do not know how they've quite managed that, but, well, that was this opportunistic, and then there's that from Ryan.
What's rule number 1 of motorsport? Don't hit your teammate. Well, I think Ryan has just broken that rule. Yeah, how did they not end up backwards? I mean, this car is so loaded through Sunset Bend. You know, I thought a slight pin drop at the rear of the car, you know, would make it spin. So how did a Ferrari diving to the inside not cause at least one of them to end up facing the wrong way? I do not know. But Siverton, I mean, he's not got the pace at the moment. I mean, he was very much entitled to defend the line, and Espresso Ryan has to take all of the blame for that little incident at Sunset Bend. The 20 car still doing a good job, but maybe, Tim, is it time to implement a little bit of team orders, allow Ryan through, do the old switcheroo, and see if Ryan maybe could catch up to Scarrett in 5th place?
Nice to be seen, doesn't it? Just to keep you up to date with what's happening in the front. We're on lap 7, a quarter of the way through the race already. Sybratton leads from Helvik in 2nd place. That gap's opened up to about 8 tenths of a second now. In fact, maybe that 9 tenths. Shouldn't that grow before my eyes? As Maivang is in 3rd. That battle for the top 3, 1.5 seconds covering those guys in the Mercedes. And I see Steinbratton not fully comfortable with it. A bit of wiggling around on the Ullmann straight there. So this could be a bit of a change. There you go. A swap of positions there between Maivang and Helvig. It looked like Helvig just backed out of it a little bit. And once again, it looks like it's game on between these two. And Seb, it was this time last week where we saw Steinbratton start to pull away from Maivang and Helvig, who were then close for pretty much the entirety of the rest of the race. And that's where, as we mentioned before, it all came down to the pit stops and the strategy. And the difference of, well, having your windscreen tear off replaced and not is what separated those two drivers and allowed Helvig to get back in front of Maivang. And it's almost like it's history repeating ourselves, but at a different track.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very similar, you're right, from 1 week ago. Helvig, you know, he had the pace earlier on, but that's just disappeared. And Maivang, you know, the king of consistency, and you know, of course, Maivang now would have learned about his mistakes from last time. Any of the, you know, the top drivers, the top flight of drivers that we have in these series, they'll analyze their race to the nth degree after the fact, and he'll know that he lost the race because of not taking a tear off. So I'm sure Maivang would have, you know, analysed the strategy even more than he did last week. So, you know, Helvig is got such an uphill battle if he wants to retake that 2nd place. And again, Helvig wide through turn 10. I mean, Helvig just not finding the pace that we saw from him earlier on in the race. I wonder if he was, you know, if he's pushed his tyres a little bit too much to keep up with Steinbratton, where Steinbratton was maybe conserving them a little bit more. Helvig, you know, went full pedal to the metal, burn out his tyres, and he's going to suffer the consequences for the next 40 minutes.
I was just about to ask you about that, Seb, whether you thought that Helvig had burnt through his tyres a little bit too soon, and wow, I think you've already answered my question before we've even asked it, as seeing in the background there down the opposite end of the Ullmann Straight, still scrapping away as Scarrett and Benedictson after, you know, Solanic driver in the BMW making ahead of Scarrett, who'd held the 4th position and been a little bubble by himself, but those two working together now to pull away from the Alvi of Sivertson, who was in 6th place. He's got a team, well, two teammates behind him, especially Ryan and Ole Gunnar Stensrud. And the two Ferraris making you 6th, 7th, and 8th respectively. And Loxon, in our second of our two Audi runners, he makes up 9th place right now, just falling off the pace a little bit. But we all know all it takes is one mistake and you can be brought right back into the equation. We saw it last time out at the Red Bull Ring. We've seen it time and time again in both the real world and the sim racing world. It's never been spoken a truer word. The cars aren't real, but the racing truly is, as we see Scarrett lunging in on the brakes of that BMW of Benedictson right now, trying to turn up the pressure to find a way back past and get him into the position that, well, he feels that he so rightly deserves to at least be in. If we head round Tower Turn even. Hey Seb, how do you play this one out? Because, I mean, the BMW is going to be incredibly good through this sort of section of the circuit. You know, plenty of curbs. It's where that car really excels. I mean, at the moment, Scarrett just not quite seeming to have the answers, and I'm half wondering maybe if the Mercedes, these high track temperatures, whether the race is just falling away from them a little bit. I mean, Benedictson is near enough matching the pace of Helvig last time around.
That's a really interesting statistic. I hadn't have caught that. But yeah, Benedictson, he's got the pace, and I think you're right. I think we're seeing as the temperatures rise and as the fuel load burns off, that the BMW is becoming the better race car, at least in this sort of mid to high pack battle. I think the best way that Scarrett can get 4th place is to just play the long game. Save fuel behind Benedictson, allow him to create the gap in the air, use his slipstream, fuel save as much as you can, and just try and out-strategize Benedictson. You know, Benedictson's got the pace, but does he have the longevity in his fuel and tyres? I'm not so sure. You know, Scarrett, you know, he's not going to win on a 1-lap pace. I think Scarrett's struggling a little bit more with the circuit at the moment, so it's all about what you can do with strategy and how you can create your race fortunes, really. And this is when, and we don't have it, you know, you talked about the real-life racing and sim racing earlier. This is where you really struggle as a driver, because you normally would have, you know, your team, you know, with a strategy, strategizing how to get ahead of the driver ahead of you or how to stay ahead of the driver behind. But in sim racing, you don't have any of that. You're by yourself. You're having to make all of these calculations from within the cockpit. So Scarrett's got to sort of work it out on the fly, but you know, it's always a good shout just to stay within slipstream, fuel save the tyres, and just hope that Benedictson is currently burning his tyres out a little bit quicker ahead of you.
Well, I mean, interesting ones. So we're on Benedictson. His fastest lap is within 4/10 of the fastest lap of the race. That's currently being held by Mervang. He's in 2nd place in the 889 RPC esports Mercedes. He's really putting power to the metal. I mean, his pace has dropped off a little bit. Last time around, he went. It's about a second slower than Helvig. He's currently in 1st. That's going to help him catch up. As you see on the screen right now, the differences in lap time between Benedictson and Scarrett, who've been training identical lap times near as damn it. Getting closer bit by bit, and Scarrett pulling away from Sivertson. The Audi in 6th place. So we're right on board with Scarrett right now. Well, you can just, I mean, you can visually see that the way that gap is opening up between himself and Benedictson, and so just it's just the mentality of being inside the cockpit. You know, yourself being an experienced and, you know, a GT driver. You know, someone who's had plenty of success as well. And how do you overcome this? I mean, it's as much as clearly there's got to be pace within that car because it's occupying the top 3 places right now, exactly the same machinery. But yet Benedictson, he's got ahead as in a bit too deep, locks it up and just understeered it into the hairpin there to Scarrett. But it seems like he's almost overdriving the car a bit now.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that he shouldn't be doing, is he shouldn't be overdriving the car. You know that, if he's, let's say we are in Alexander Scarrett's position, you know that the car has natural pace within it. You're right, the top three are all in the same machinery as you. So you know the car can do it, and it's all about how you are extracting the pace from that car. And Scarrett is just overdriving the car. We've seen it from real life racers as well. I mean, noticeably Lance Stroll. He used to really overdrive the car, and it used to cost him so much time. And Alexander Scarrett is doing the same thing. He's braking a little bit later, hoping that will gain him the time to Benedictson, when actually it's just losing him even more time. So it's all about being calm and smooth and just focusing on just consistency. And it's a lot easier said than done, especially in a sprint race where you don't actually have that many laps and that many opportunities to be able to gain incrementally. So you always are looking to gain a few tenths a lap. You're looking for those big margins between you and the car ahead. So Scarrett, he just needs to calm down. He just needs to, to always think about, driving like he would in an endurance race. Just get the laps in. Just try and be as consistent as possible. And another trick that I found really useful is, that's very wide from Scarrett there. He's going to be good if he doesn't end up in the wall. Scarrett, great car control, but again, he's overdriving the car, Tim. But the one thing, the tip that I have is focus on something else. Focus on either, hitting a target lap time, or focus on saving fuel. And that just seems to just relax you as a driver. You start to, feel that you are doing something successfully, and that could just help you bring your pace back to where it really should be.
Maybe right now Scarrett could benefit from some weekly group coaching sessions from someone like Apex Racing Academy. You also have 29 data packs, setups, track guides, integration with VRS, Virtual Racing School, and much, much more. I know quite a few people who've had these, been on these group coaching sessions with Apex, and I mean, notably our fellow co-commentator here at Apex Racing TV, Austin Knight, and he found literally seconds per lap. I mean, he wasn't exactly a slouch beforehand, but it's really elevated him up almost like a tier, into the next group up, as it were. And many other drivers who've been on these coaching sessions as well have all really benefited from them, and well worth checking those guys out. So on board with Maivang, 6 tenths between himself and Steinbraten. Helvig has dropped off the pace now after occupying second place for, well, up until about lap 7. It was. No, it wasn't about. It was exactly lap 7. And from that moment, it's just dropped off the pace slowly. His last time around is matching race pace, but that's not going to help him gain. He needs to be going faster than Steinbraten, should he wish to close up onto the back of him. But the quickest man on the track right now is Maivang for RPC Esports. And now, are we going to see Steinbraten maybe not quite have it his own way as we've seen in the previous 2 rounds? It remains to be seen. I'd tell you what, Maivang is moving around in the braking areas, just trying to fill his mirrors, distract Steinbraten into making a mistake. You see the differences in lap times there. So as much as they were pretty much equal for laps 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, so the last 2 laps, Maivang has been 3 tenths quicker, and that's what has allowed him to close up. 6 tenths as you gap now between the top 2. And more disappointing for Helvig is you can't even see him in the rear of the rear of the shop there, Seb.
No, Helvig's pace has well and truly disappeared. I mean, Helvig set his fastest lap of the race last time round, I should say, a 2-minute 0.95, and that was nowhere near the pace of Maivang, who set for him a fairly slow lap. I mean, he's 3 tenths off his own personal best. So when Helvig is absolutely pushing, getting the most out of his car, he's still a couple of tenths off Maivang and Steinbraten. I mean, it's not so much about Maivang. Oh, that's Helvig going very wide as he entered the back straight, not the line through Le Mans that he would have wanted. Steinbraten Maivang hasn't gained pace. Steinbraten's lost it. He was doing sort of mid 2-minute 0.5, 2-minute 0.6s. The last few laps, he's been more closer to the 2-minute 1s, and Maivang is just being consistent. So is Steinbratton starting to struggle with the tyres? Has he overheated them maybe for a few laps? I mean, look at how close their lap times were last time, around a hundredth of a second, I should say, between the two. Benedictson and Scarrett, by the way, Tim, they've been having a little bit of a battle. I think Benedictson went off the track last lap and Scarrett got past, but I think, Tim, we're going to see what happened to Alexander Scarrett.
Scarrett's ahead there. Oh, so he'd made his way back past Benedictson, and it's all undone. He's lost the rear end coming through Sunset Bend. Bit too much speed. Of course, high track temperatures, and there's a lack of grip through that corner anyway. Due to the bumps, around he gets swapped ends, and is now behind Sivertson. He's into 6th. This could turn out to be for Scarrett a race of what could have been. Good for 4th. He was in a bubble by himself, but 2 mistakes has cost him dearly. And now he's plugging the gap between Sivertson and Ryan, and breaking up the train of Team Slow-Mo drivers who were originally occupying 6th, 7th and 8th. See Sivertson now up into 5th. Well, it's starting to get a little bit unsettled, Seb. About to reach halfway through the race, and a few mistakes starting to crop out there. In terms of the track temperatures, well, they haven't actually gone down at all. So I think they're here to stay. It is a glorious day here in Sebring, Florida. Talking about here to stay, it's these two at the top. Steinbratton and Meyervang once again. Inseparable, these two. And I think... memory serves me right, Seb. I think we'll get it confirmed when they come across the line, but I think Meyervang has taken another 10th out of Steinbratton here. Let's have a look at the lap times that they come across. Well, there you go. In fact, a good 10th and a half. Nearly, yeah, it is a solid 10th and a half there. Wow.
Wow,
1600 to be precise. You know, because we like to deal with precision here, don't we, Seb?
I mean, motorsport, it's all about precision, and those extra, hundreds or thousandths of a second really matter, if you keep on sort of chipping away. So yeah, that is, I mean, Steinbratton just isn't finding the pace that he was finding a few laps ago. Another lap in the 2-minute 0.9s, and Meyervang just doesn't seem to be being affected, and actually hearing on the brakes into the hairpin, Steinbratton now having to save a little bit of fuel. You heard a little bit of lifting and coasting going on from our lead driver. We'll have a look and follow him on board into turn 10. Yeah, so he's fuel saving now. So I think what's happened is Steinbratton, was happy to lead and gain a bit of a gap, but has worked out that his strategy, which he planned to do, isn't going to work out like he was hoping. So he's now having to save a little bit of fuel. That slowed him down and allowed Meyervang just to get back into that slipstream range. But while Steinbratton's having to go slower, having to fuel save, Meyervang can almost fuel save even more. So I think we are seeing Steinbratton on the back foot at the moment, Tim, something that I don't think we've said in the last 2 races, and Meyervang is looking in a really good position to win this race.
Of course, Steinbratton would be aware of exactly where he is if he had something maybe like SDK Gaming, the most accurate live timing on iRacing. It's enhanced fuel calculator as well. Brilliant for adjusting a team strategy on the fly. A lot of people use it during the Spa 24 hours with great success. And you can use it too as well. It comes with a 14-day free trial, but that is not all. You can also utilize it to broadcast your own leagues as well, as we use it for all of our leagues here and coverage at Apex Racing TV. The most complete overlay on iRacing. Has enhanced relative boxes, mini maps, timing towers, and of course, as we mentioned previously, the fuel calculators, much more. Check those guys out, well worth using. You can use it to sync up your cameras to the commentators so they see exactly what's being broadcast live onto YouTube, Twitch, or whatever your streaming platform of choice is. As Scarrett trying to recover now against Sivertson. And getting up close and personal with the rear end of that Audi R8. Onto the brakes, into turn 2. And that's a bit of a tricky corner step, I find, because if you run it a little bit too deep, And the same here as well. You really catch those curbs on the outside, on the exit of the corner, and they're quite steep and aggressive, those ones.
Yeah, just like the bumps around Sebring, the curbs are very aggressive and something that you don't want to be hitting at all. I mean, most of this track is threading the needle. You've got to thread your way through bumps and curbs. That's why so many drivers adore this circuit. Turns 3, 4, and 5, I think, is where most drivers, especially myself, find that, you know, I'm losing the most time to the professionals through there. You need such good car control, such good balance within the car itself to be able to get those corners exactly right. Otherwise, like you said, you'll end up on the curb. You'll even end up sort of heading onto the grass, and at that point, you know, any form of lap time has just disappeared. I just adore GT3s around Sebring. I always have a huge smile on my face whenever we commentate or race anything to do with GT3s in Sebring. They're just such a good mix. Scarrett in 6th place at the moment. You're right, what could have been for him? I mean, he managed to get past Benedictson. Benedictson made his own mistake the lap previously, so, you know, Scarrett was looking at a pretty easy P4 until that mistake. And now, Tim, I think he's going to try and get past the Audi and make it at least P5.
Wow, interesting there. Sivertson just pulled over, got out the throttle, let him pass, and then moved back again. Didn't challenge Scarrett in any way, shape, or form. In fact, he said, off you go, it's yours, I'm getting out of your way. A bit of a strange one, that. Not seen that one too many times, certainly in a while. But I think that's a little bit of where Sivertson knows that Scarrett is a lot quicker than him. And just trying to lose the most minimal amount of time, and then maybe just try and follow Scarrett along and hope that it'll pull him along and extend that gap between himself being Sivertson and Ryan, who's currently in 7th in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't quite catch your message. Having a few technical issues on my side.
I was just saying about Scarrett just having a very easy overtake over Sivertson. Sivertson pretty much just moving out of the way, and it's almost like Sivertson knows that Scarrett is quicker, and he's doing it to try and utilise him, to try and pull him along and extend that gap over himself and Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what he's doing. It just goes to show how aware these drivers are within the cockpit, you know, thinking about the long-term race. And you're right, Sivertson did not make that move hard at all. In fact, really facilitated the move into Sunset Bend. You know, and I think Sivertson as well wants that slipstream from Isaacson. He wants to be able to do a little bit of fuel saving because, you know, Sivertson hasn't really had a car up ahead of him to allow him to do that for quite some time. So, you know, I think it benefits Sivertson greatly, enormously almost, to let Scarrett by. You know, it's not in your race, don't waste any time, and, you know, yeah, try and extend the gap to his teammate. Maybe for safety's sake more than anything. You know, Sivertson and Ryan came together, of course, at Sunset a few laps ago. Actually, Ryan starting to come under pressure from Stenstrud, the number 9 Ferrari. Ferrari versus Ferrari. You see the two in the background. And yeah, Stenstrud, I think, could be just easing up to the back, I should say, of Espresso Rio Jr. for Team Slowmo. So that might be a battle to keep our eyes on, Tim. But we're 35 minutes through the race now. Do we think we're going to start to see a few pit stops soon?
If history sort of says anything for both the opening rounds, Monza and Red Bull Ring, these drivers will be extending as long as possible, as Broughton picking up the pace over Meyerbank once again, and just pulling out a couple of tenths over the RPC esports driver. And it'd be interesting to hear as well if Meyerbank is fuel saving as well. We'll try and keep an eye out for that one next time we go on board with him, because, oh, there we go, as if by magic. It can be interesting to see, Seb. Is he fuel saving, or where Steinbrock we know was fuel saving, Seb? Was Meyerbank not doing so, and that's what allowed him to close up the gap at quite an exponential race of knots against Steinbrock?
I mean, he picked up a huge whack of understeer through Le Mans corner. That would not be helping him whatsoever. No, not fuel saving at all into Sunset Bend. That's where I expect most of the drivers to be doing their fuel saving, because, you know, you don't lose that much time. You just sort of change the way that you gain the time through the corner, through Sunset, by fuel saving. You sort of take a little bit of speed off the entry and put it onto the exit. I mean, Mervang, again, almost a tenth of a second quicker than the race leader. Mervang maybe has done all of the fuel saving that he wanted/needed to do for this opening stint. I mean, you know, he has been behind cars for the entirety of the stint, and that really, really helps your fuel mileage. So maybe we're sort of seeing things slightly disingenuously in terms of, like, Steinbraten is fuel saving at the moment, so his pace maybe isn't to his full potential, while Mervang is absolutely pushing. I mean, look at that. It was almost at the bridge that Steinbraten lifted off the throttle. So maybe we're seeing sort of a slightly false picture here, that Steinbraten has got a lot more pace in his pocket, but is choosing not to use it at the moment, while Mervang is going absolutely pedal to the metal. In which case, will be a little bit disappointing, because I'm really enjoying this battle for first.
37 minutes on the clock, out of the hour. Very much all to play for, certainly between our top two here. The gap ebbing and flowing between 4 tenths and 7 tenths. Numerous laps. On lap 19, we look down from the helicopter to our top two. That is all that separates them. 4 tenths. Once again, the gap. As Mervang really closing up, starting to apply the pressure onto Steinbraten. We know he is rock solid and won't be fazed by it at all. Nothing he hasn't seen before. This once again just in the background there, Helvig just running a bit wide out of Le Mans. So they come onto the race into Sunset Bend. Really see from these outside camera shots just how much the car, especially around the apex, centre part of the corner, how the cars are really bouncing along, especially the rear end, and then again across the start-finish straight. Concrete paved section. Look at the wall on the outside there, and trying to open up the turn-in point to the corner. Once again, gap extends out. I normally see these gaps ebbing and flowing like this, because of BOP, balance of performance, but these are exactly the same cars, so we haven't got that issue with them today. This is all coming down to driver technique, I think.
Certainly is. It's all about driver technique. Maybe a little bit of car setup in there as well. You have to run a very different setup around Sebring than you would at, say, a more conventional circuit like Red Bull Ring or Monza, for instance. You know, you have to run the suspension a little bit softer to deal with the bump. So maybe, you know, some drivers are starting to adapt to the setup a little bit better than others. I mean, riding on board with Mervang at the moment, I mean, he's been technically perfect through the first part of the lap. Made a little bit of a mistake, as I said that, into turn 10. Stenstrud, our first driver into the pits, Tim, he's decided that this is the time to come into the pits and get a new tank of fuel. I don't think we'll see that car pop up on its jacks, I should say, to take any form of tyres. It's going to be all about the fuel here today. Having said that, that's a very long pit stop here for the number 9.
It is, Seb. He's been stationary. I mean, Logson has already headed to the pits. He was stationary for 4 seconds, whereas Stentrud was stationary for 27 seconds. In fact, that was only 10 seconds less than it was the entirety of Logson's transition through the pit lane. Yeah, Stentrud has come back out in 8th though, so hasn't lost any track position, so be happy about that one. Actually, a mistake from Logson is what's sent him towards the back of the grid and just off the pace a little bit here in Florida. We start to see the pit stops now as we're into 40 minutes as new fastest lap of the race there from Steinbraten. 2 minutes dead. 0.286 and 3 tenths nearly quicker than Mervang in second place. The gap opens up once again. It's like an accordion the way it opens and closes. The gap between those top two as Benediktsson is into the pits from 4th place. The hard-charging Icelandic driver. Electing to head in now. Coming up to the 41-minute mark. You're going to see Scarrett pop in. No, likes to go for track position and go ahead of him, but he's yet to stop. Simpson going past as well. I think he'll lose a place to, yes, definitely to Ryan, but he's going to come out in front of Sensrud. But obviously quite a bit time-wise, and it'll be interesting to see how long he stops for. So, certainly in comparison to Sensrud, there you go, 16 seconds. So 3 very different pit stops so far. With Loxon being stationary for 4 seconds, then Benedictson stationary for 16, and Sensrud stationary for 27. So draw from that what you will, Seb. I think we'll once we've got everyone's time, then we'll get a little bit more of an idea. But I think Sensrud maybe just fixing a little bit of damage. Maybe I'll have a few optional repairs that he caught from hitting curbs. But I do worry for Loxon if whether he's got enough fuel to make it home to the end, based on Benedictson's pit stop time.
It's a really interesting one. I'm wondering if we're seeing a few drivers sort of take a half and half strategy. So half the fuel that they need at the start with guaranteeing that they're going to have to come into the pits and take 50% fuel because, there you go, Tim, your questions have been answered. Loxon returning to the pit, so clearly not enough fuel on board for him to get to the end of the race. I mean, you know, I don't believe that we've gone from, 1 week ago at Red Bull Ring when they were stopping basically just to, as a formality to get, to appease the stewards and the regulations to take a pit stop, when now they're having to stop for, some 15, 20 seconds. Actually, Loxon decides to take some tyres. Very interesting for him. Maybe he just wants to go for a little bit of a glory run. Maybe tries to get the fastest lap. Not going to lose a position, of course, is Loxon. I think it's going to be a really key when we see Steinbart and Mervang and Helvik come into the pits because, they're the ones that were quite adventurous on strategy last time by, and I don't expect them to be stationary for that long. I really think that you can do it mostly on one tank with maybe, a few litres added just for a little bit of safety.
There's the Team Happy Life Factory esports driver coming out in the RDR8. It's 1 lap down now, but the pit stop's still due to take place. We'll probably move back onto the lead lap. And still, that gap remains. It's now 0.6 of a second between our top 2, Steinbart and Mervang. And who's going to come into pits first? I mean, Mervang seems to be just holding on and against Steinbart for now. Does Steinbart come in a bit earlier? Or does he just stick to his guns? And likewise with Mervang, does he maybe look to a bit of an alternate strategy? For me, Seb, that seems almost like a little bit of a risk for Mervang because it's going to bring him in amongst people. The last thing he wants to do is get stuck in a battle with them. Seems as though he's clearly not fuel saving, pushing hard, whereas Steinbart is fuel saving and almost so he's got almost that bag of pace in reserve to maybe push out a few almost quali-star laps around the pit window time and really go for gold that way, whereas Mervang, I feel maybe needs to play a little bit more tactical, have a bit more thought in it in comparison, should he want to secure victory here today.
I think if I was Mervang, I'd be playing the do whatever he doesn't do strategy. Basically, when you sort of get to 1 or 2 laps of fuel, I think I'd be, whatever Steinbart doesn't do, you might as well try, you might as well come into the pits. But you're right, I wouldn't want to be stopping any earlier than you necessarily need to, because you're right, you're going to just get stuck in traffic and, you've got a risk of being involved in an incident or maybe some lapping issues. So, yeah, I think Mervang has got to do what Steinbart does, maybe a little bit of a difference when you get into the final few laps of the stint, but I mean, I think, Steinbarton's got everything covered off at the moment. The only thing that I can see is that could be Steinbarton's undoing is if he decides that he doesn't want to take that much fuel at the stop and tries to fuel save his way to the end of the race. Maybe Mervang can just sort of cruise up to the back of him and make the overtake. I'm not sure. The gap, though, down to 2.5 tenths of a second. Mervang having an absolutely rapid lap so far. I think this could be his best opportunity to make an overtake here, Tim.
This is closed right up. Look at that gap, 0.2 of a second. Rano versus RPC. The battle for the lead here in Florida is Sebring. We've got 1/4 of an hour left on the clock. Going on lap 23. Who's going to come out on top? between these two. Could Meyervang finally find that definitive edge to make his way past Steinbraten, who doesn't sound like he's fuel saving anymore? Clearly starting to feel the pressure from Meyervang in these closing stages of the race. To head across the line, onto lap 24, into turn 1. Pick your marker and stick to it as the dirt comes up very fast on the exit out of turn 1. We race down towards turn 2. Left, the right, and then a long left again. It pretty much comes at you immediately before you head through Gurney Bend. And underneath the bridge, down towards the hairpin turn. You have to really throw out the anchor to the slowest point on the circuit. Bounce across the curves, and again another corner where it tightens up on the exit. The exit coming at you a lot quicker than what you think. Certainly in that first part of the chicane. As we now head through Fangio, up to Cunningham Corner, and immediately round the left hand that is Collier and into Tower Turn. You see different lines being taken there. Steinbart and Lexi to run a bit more of a wider line through there than Meyervang, Seb.
It's a common variation in GT3 driving. I tend to sort of follow Steinbraten's line more than Meyervang. It tends to be fairly equal on pace. One of them maybe could be using the tyres a little bit more, and that's the great thing about Sebring. You really can sort of have your own driving lines and your own sort of driving style, and you tend to be roughly on the same pace as another driver who's maybe taking slightly different lines. It really is open to almost interpretation around this track. Now down this, the back straight, the Almond straight into Sunset Bend. Hold your breath, turn the car in, and just pray that the front end decides to stick with you. What an incredible corner Sunset Bend is, and that is our race leader into the pits, soon followed by Meyervang in second.
Here we go, the race of the pit stops are underway. Who will come out in front? Will it be Steinbraten? Will it be Meyervang? Place your bets now. They head down towards their respective pit boxes. Helvig has stayed out and set the fastest lap of the race. He is pushing hard to close up the gap. Steinbraten, wow, they go out pretty much straight away. Solitary for only 3.3 seconds, 5.6 from Meyervang. These two are going to the bitter end. And once again, that gap has opened up. Look, 4 seconds now. They came in bumper to bumper, nose to tail. And now it's 4 seconds, and all of Meyervang's hard work and graft undone in the blink of an eye. And now it's game on. What can Helvig do? He's out in front, he's in fresh air, and he's setting the qualification pace. As I mentioned last time around, fastest lap of the race, surely. Oh, half spin there. No, that's got to be all done and dusted for Helvig. Would have really mattered most, Seb. It's all gone wrong for the RSR by G Performance driver.
Cunningham catches another driver out. Very easy to do, but you're right, that was Helvig's one and only chance. He set the fastest lap of the race last time by, really had the pace, and then as soon as he tried to push a little bit more, the car decided firmly against it. So we're into Cunningham now. So he's also fuel saving. Just too much speed in. I think he's also electing to fuel save with the clutch, and as he's pulled the clutch out, that's engaged the rear tyres and basically overloaded them. It's not one of my preferred techniques to fuel save with the clutch. Much prefer the old lifting coast technique to avoid situations like Helvig found himself in. But yeah, that's Helvig's one and only chance done. I thought, with the low fuel, with clean air, he could just maybe gain a little bit more time. Helvig goes again, so 2 laps extra at least over Steinbraten and Meyervang. But Helvig, I mean, it almost seems a little bit fruitless at the moment because he's just not going to have the... he's not got the gap after that mistake. He's going to come out in third. You might as well just come in, play it safe, and just hope that Steinbraten and Meyervang up ahead have some form of issue. And Helvig again looks like he's overdriving the car through turns 2 and 3. Gets it almost collected for turn 4 under the bridge now, but Helvik, you know, I think, do you think that fastest lap went to his head a little bit? I mean, not trying to say this in a mean way whatsoever, but you know, set the fastest lap, you feel really good, you start pushing a little bit more, and it all just came undone for Helvik.
Seems that way, doesn't it, Seb? It certainly seems that way. What has Helvik got in the tank pushing on here? With minimum fuel. Utilising the best opportunity that he's got to climb a place. There's around Cunningham, through Collier and into Tower. What has he got left in the back? Surely he's got to be in this lap. That car's got to be running on absolute fumes. Credit to the Mercedes AMG GT, GT3, Evo. Here on iRacing, of course, the new addition in GT3 featured heavily at the Spa 24-hour last weekend. Featuring heavily here, and that's looking like a lockout for the top 4 of them in the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup. Except surely Harvey, he's got to be in this lap, hasn't he? Surely. I mean, I'm looking at the clock. We have got 7.5 minutes left, nearly. This is dicing with death. Dancing with the devil. Yeah, there we go. He's in. He's in. I tell you what, yet to stop as well. We haven't mentioned him. Scarrett, Sivenson, and Espresso Ryan. They've all yet to visit the pit box. So there goes our leader, Steinbraten. He's going to head past. There's Meyervang. Now the gap between Helvig and Meyervang was around about 5 seconds. It's going to be interesting when they come out again. I think it's going to be roughly about similar. And despite those epic quali-style laps, yeah, there we go. Helvig stationary for only 2 tenths quicker than what Meyervang was, but it's not going to be enough to plug the gap. And if anything, Seb, I think that gap might even have grown a little bit.
Not surprised after Helvik's mistake. They were both stationary for almost an identical amount of time, were Mervang and Helvik. So, you know, they're clearly on the same fuel strategy. Steinbraten risking it all. 2 seconds less in the pit stop. So, you know, he's taken on less fuel, but I think he's still going to get to the end. But yeah, Helvik, I mean, it was worth a go, but at the end of the day, that mistake really cost Stefan Helvik. And Mervang, you know, I don't sense that the white flag has been shown yet in terms of Mervang giving up on the lead of the race, but I mean 5 seconds, a 5 second gap I should say, with 8 minutes of racing, 6 minutes of racing left to go. At that point, you know, there isn't really a lot you can do, so you start consolidating the position, you start, maybe driving a little bit below your absolute best, you start, just trying to maintain the car and get it to the end of the race and just hope that Steinbraten has some form of misfortune around the lap somewhere. It's been a really good race so far, Tim. We're actually going to have a different podium, aren't we? We're going to have Steinbraten, Mervang, Helvik instead of Steinbraten, Helvik and Mervang, which we've had in the last 2 occasions. So, a little bit of a change up in our top 3. I mean, what has happened to Helvik? Because he clearly has the pace, Tim. He set the fastest lap of the race on low fuel. He fuel saved 2 extra laps over the leaders, but it's all come undone for him.
It's going to be an interesting tilt to Helvik after the race. Well, that fastest lap of the race has been taken away from him. Steinbraten, 2 minutes, 0.175 for him. Going for the Grand Chelem here. Qualify on pole, leading every lap, and then taking the race victory. Can he hold on to it? It remains to be seen. Not long left now. Under 5 minutes left on the clock here in Florida. So just see where he's just using the throttle there, Seb. I don't know if you calls it as well. It seems like he's using the throttle almost to steer the car, just to try and bring the rear end round a little bit as Ryan is into the pits. I'll tell you what, Scarrett and Sivertson, they are yet to pit. They are leaving it ridiculously late here.
They are. I mean, the regulations state that they do have to come into the pits at some point, but yes, Scarrett really not feeling the need to come into the pits, as well as the Audi driver of Eric Stiverton. Yeah, really interesting strategies going on at the moment. And Scarra in 4th place. So that's why we have our top 4 of Mercedes drivers. He's yet to be into the pits to take on a little bit of fuel. I'd love to know their fuel numbers at the moment, how many laps they've got left, because surely they must be running dry. I mean, you know, for 56 minutes of racing, it's kind of the limit that you can do in a GT3. You really struggle these days to get past the hour window. We saw that at the Spa 24 Hours last weekend. Drivers really having to work at saving fuel. Steinbratton through Sunset Bend as we ride on board. Let's take a lap, shall we, Tim, with Steinbratton on board. So heading down into turn 1, we're going to be looking on the outside line. The barrier on the outside is going to fall away. That's not going to be our braking mark. Steinbratton just the fastest lap. Turn in, go as close to the wall as you dare. Aim for that cone on the exit now. Absolutely pin the throttle. He judges it absolutely beautifully. Brake at the 2 cone. At the inside line, touch a little bit of curb on the outside, use as much grass as you want on the left-hand side. Now move it back to the right-hander. And now we head down the back straight, under the bridge and up through the gears. Scarra and Siverton, Tim, both have now come into the pit lane. So they have decided that their fuel stint is done. We're going to brake at the 4 cone, get the car turned in, use the curb on the left-hand side of the track to the right. As we head up towards Cunningham, where Tim, we saw, you know, Helvik made that mistake. Do we think that Helvik could have won the race if he hadn't have made that mistake there, or do you think that, you know, Steinbratton and Mervang have just had enough pace anyway?
Well, we've got there's Simonson sending out the pits. Scarra has also been in the pits. Interestingly, Scarra, he's put in an epic middle sector because there is Benedictson, and he is now behind Alexander Scarra. And, well, I'll tell you what, Scarra has really recovered himself well. Of course, had that spin after heading back into 4th place after losing it to Ben Dixon and fell, well, behind Sivertson in 6th place. So, great recovery from Scarra, who's really picked up here in this last lap or so. You see lap time differences there. I mean, he's really been grinding things out. As we've got 1.5 minutes left of racing here in Florida, and interestingly, that I should say that fastest lap from Steinbratton. The only driver to get inside the 1:59 here today, and looking like he's going to be the only one to do so. I mean, he went nearly 4 tenths quicker on that fastest lap than this previous best, and there you go, another in the 1:59s. Everything's starting to come together here for the Arano Esports driver.
Oh, that's wide.
Wow, Kirsten, the commentator there, just saying how it's all coming into shape for him, and he runs wide, held it together somehow, some way, but the white flag is in the air. 1 lap left remaining here in Florida. Round 3 of the SimLab Racing Summer GT3 Cup. Onto the brakes he comes. Just patient on the throttle. And just looking to bring it home. 7 seconds the advantage over Meyervang. And I'm a little bit surprised really with Meyervang. I thought it would be closer between these two than what it's ultimately ended up being here, sir, but really. I mean, let's not forget Meyervang was all over the back of Steinbratton and closing him in stages, but just since the pit stops, he's fallen right off the back of Steinbratton.
I think, you know, what I said earlier, I think is come true. Mervang just really not thinking that he can get the win. So, you know, just starts consolidating 2nd place, doesn't drive to his absolute limit. But you're right, I think the gap is now 7 seconds, so he's lost 2 seconds since the pit stop. I mean, Steinbratton been on another level since the last stint. I think he's done all of his fuel saving that he needed to do. He's on the back straight at the moment. Steinbratton, once again, is looking in a really good position to make it 3 wins from 3 starts.
Which means he's going to be on to, well, nobody can beat him. So we've only got 2 more rounds left remaining, Imola and Daytona. As he heads out of Sunset Bend for the final time. Steinbratton takes the victory here today in round 3 of the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup from Sebring International Raceway with a weave and a flash of the lights. Meyervang is going to pick up 2nd. 7.5 seconds down the road in the end, and Helvig just monochrome in the background there. He's going to pick up that last podium place, as Seb mentioned. Ivang and Helvig swapping around in terms of race results from the previous 2 rounds. Steinbrassen making it 3 wins from 3. Just pretty much needs to have a cut. Well, if he finishes on the podium for the next 2 rounds, then that pretty much going to secure the championship for him in an incredibly strong position for Steinbrassen. The Scarrett, what a recovery from the IGL Coatings driver. Span fell through the order, came back in massive style. Showed not that great at pace early on. Great recovery from him. Benedictson finishes 5th, up 2 places, highest position gainer here today for the Icelandic driver. Great drive from him. Let's wait for the last few drivers to come across the line. There is Espresso Ryan. I'm sure the drivers to lose out of place to Benedictson, anyone being Sivertson. Across the line he comes, just waiting for Stensrud right now, and also Team Slow-Mo drivers across the line will be able to bring you some classified results here. Round 3 of the championship. We'll have a bit of a chat to some of our drivers, and a bit of a shout out to our final sponsor for today, Virtual Racing School. Looking to improve your on-track performance with 50 plus data packs for road and oval racing. Setups, track guides, they have data analysis software, one-on-one coaching. Make sure you check them out. Absolutely cracking a set of setups from those guys. Something I use personally. Can't praise them enough. As here are your classified results from round 3 of the championship. Steinbrassen making it 3 wins from 3. That's a dominance from him yet again here in America. Marvang picks up 2nd place for RPC Esports with Helvig. Just swapping place with, as we mentioned, those 2 finishing the opposite way round for the previous 2 rounds. Marvang getting the edge over Helvig here today in Florida. The RSSR by G Performance picking up the last podium place. Scarrett, great recovery from him. Finished back where he started in 4th place for IGL E-Coatings. There's Benedictson in 5th. Then it's the 3 Team Slow-Mo drivers. First up, it's Simonson in the Audi, and then the 2 Ferraris of Ryan and Stensrud with Loxon of Team Happy Life Factory Esports finishing in 9th. That's going to round out your grid, but wow, Seb. Wow, what a race. Let's have a bit of a chat to some of our drivers. First up, let's have a chat to your Victor here today. As we mentioned, 3 wins from 3, 3 poles from 3. Ole Steinbrassen, can it get, well, any better? Are we going to see a clean sweep in the championship?
Of course, that's the goal, but it's good competition, especially from like Odin and Stefan. I feel like they've like really improved the last 2 races. So looking at their pace right now, it can of course get close in the last races. So my focus have to be up there and push very hard.
And in terms of those next 2 races, I mean, Imola and Daytona, is there any of those tracks that you feel a bit more nervous about than the other?
I mean, like I've raced all of these tracks, and I'm like not super comfortable on Sebring either, and Red Bull Ring, for example. So I think I should be okay for the last races.
Oh, definitely. And we saw during the midpoint of the race, obviously, Marvang was closing in on you heavily. You were fuel saving. Did it ever come into your mind that maybe letting him past, or to allow you to continue with the fuel saving, or were you feeling comfortable with your ability in fuel saving and also being able to defend from Odin as well?
I knew he had lower wing than me, so I knew that like if I let him go now, I have to get him in the pit stop, because if I don't get him in a pit stop, it's gonna be very hard to get him on the track. So I was just hoping that okay, if I go fuel save now and manage to save enough liters, I will just get the gap in the pit stop anyway to be safe from there.
Before we let you go, Ole, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
Yeah, of course. Thanks to Stefan and RSR Esports for helping me with the setup and practice. And yes.
Definitely. That's Ole Steinbrassen, your Victor here today, making it 3 wins from 3 so far in the championship. Now, Seb, I understand you're standing by with another of our drivers. Who's it you've managed to grab?
Managed to grab our second place finisher, Odin Mayavang. Let's have a chat to, I said, our second place finisher. Odin, welcome to the commentary box. Now, are you happy with that race result? Are you a little bit disappointed that you didn't manage to pick up the race win? Talk us through your race from your perspective.
Well, I was driving a completely different setup than they were. I talked to Ole right before the start, and he said he was running like the double in in wing. So I panicked and I changed my setup because I saw their qualification times, and I was nowhere near. Didn't have a chance. So I changed my my race setup last the last minute of waiting, and basically had to just coast along. I shouldn't have done it. I should have just stuck to what I had. But you know, when you get the panic, you get the panic. He psyched me out.
I mean, you did really well. I mean, there was one point in the commentary booth that we say, like you're looking in a great position because you were, you were behind, you're behind early and you were fuel saving, and it was looking really good. Where do you think it went wrong? Because you had a 2 second slower pit stop than Ole. Do you think that was, where the race was lost, or do you think that Ole was always going to be a little bit quicker than you?
I was all lost in the pit, but he is quicker than me anyway. So I'm not good at fuel saving, and he was fuel saving way more than I was. So I didn't really have a chance, and he's a Superman on pace. So I kind of figured he would pull away right after the pit, and he did. And I wanted to tease him. Hopefully he would mess up, but he didn't. So the blinking didn't work for me, unfortunately.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, you always try every sort of strategy, don't you, to try and get the race win. So we move on to Imola now next week. Does that track suit your driving style a little bit better than Sebring, or do you think that Sebring, really suited your driving style?
The thing is, I really like Sebring. It's one of my favorite tracks, but I just can't get the pace. I feel like I can't get the pace at least. So I like Imola. I think I got not good pace, decent pace. So I guess we will see. I think perhaps Ole will still be Ole and pull away, but maybe we could stick onto his bumper a little longer than we did at Sebring. It depends on the on him fuel saving or not, I guess.
Well, I mean, we wish you the best of luck for 1 week's time. Before we let you go and celebrate your first second place of the season, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or at all on the broadcast?
The same as usual. It's my wife and my team, RPC Esports. It's the nicest team around to be in.
That's really nice to hear. Well, thank you very much for coming to have a chat with us in the commentary box. Congratulations on your second place, and we will see you in 1 week's time when we head to Imola.
Thank you very much.
And I think, Tim, we might have a little bit of time for one more interview. Who have you managed to find in the paddock?
We do indeed, and I've managed to grab our third place finisher, Stefan Helvig at Varesart by G Performance. Well, Stefan, I mean, last week it all came down to pit strategy, and obviously a little bit hopeful for you again this week, especially with how deep you were running it. I mean, I assume you must have been doing quite a bit of fuel saving throughout the race to be able to go 2 laps deeper into the race than your competitors, Ole Steinbart and Odin Mervang.
No, not a lot of fuel saving. It's just that I didn't know the temps we were gonna drive on, so I practiced on 22 degrees, and I came to a race which was 50 degrees. So the setup was way too stiff on the dampers, and my tires could not comprehend this. And I also had the slowdown, which really ruined my race. And with that slowdown, I got a bit hot in the head, and I went deep into a corner and cooked my tires. So it just all came crashing down in the end. But my pace was there, so I'm happy with the pace, but not happy with how the race went.
Definitely, it was. It seemed like a bit of a challenge out there for you. I mean, having said that, though, you had an absolutely incredible start. I mean, looking at it from a positive, you've really taken the fight to both Ole and Odin in these early stages.
Yeah, I think my pace was there. I also had a good start. But my plan was to just fuel save in the start, and then I had then Ole started to push a bit. Uh, After he cooled down his tires with missing some apexes, so I had to push a bit, and then I got like really hot in the head, so I took a slowdown, and after that slowdown, it all just came crashing down. So I think without that slowdown, I think I probably could have gotten P2, but yeah, as Odin fueled a lot more than what I did and what Ole did.
Exactly. But one of those things. Still, only a week to go until the next round, and I'm sure you're very much looking forward to it. Before you let me go, Stefan, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Ole, which I was chatting about in the race, and also RSR Esports, which is my team that I drive for, and my mom and dad who support me and get me the essentials I need to do sim racing.
No problem at all. Great to talk to you as always. And that is Stefan Halvig of RSR by G Performance. Picked up third place here today. But, wow, what can we say? It starts off a good start to what's going to be an absolute festival of motorsport here on Apex Racing TV across the weekend. It's starting tomorrow night at 10 p.m. BST. It's the Radical Racing Challenge from Phillip Island for them. Then Saturday, the triple header F4 from Spa, the Aztec SimSport GT Challenge from Snetterton, and then rounding out the evening with Formula Renault 3.5 from Hockenheim. I mean, that was an iconic race last time we were there. Make sure to tune in for those. And then Sunday, well, big grids, big action. It's back as always. I love commentating on this series. The SRF Weekend Warriors from Indianapolis. No better way to nearly round out your weekend, because then, of course, Sev is back for IGP Fun F3 from Phillip Island. Make sure you tune in for those. But wow, what can we say? It's been another cracking race from the series. Intriguing stuff, and strategy nearly coming into play once again. Make sure you tune in a week's time when the RacingLab Summer GT3 Cup returns from Imola.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.